The place was bulging with people and the atmosphere was unbelievable.
You're grabbing him, you don't even know his name, you're like, I love you.
It's absolute carnage in there.
I fucking hate Arsenal.
These are the games that are almost impossible for fans to enjoy. These are the games that make life a misery if you lose. These are derby days. Some footballing conflicts are born out of political differences. Other times they come about because of incendiary incidents that occurred in the past. And sometimes fans of two football teams come to hate each other simply because they're there.
I hate everything, everything.
Hate the colour, hate the look of their fans, hate most of their players.
I absolutely despise Arsenal. I completely hate Arsenal. Every Tottenham fan does. Obviously, if you're a Tottenham fan, you hate Arsenal. It's as simple as that.
The problem with Spurs is that because they have been behind us, you know, in terms of the league for decades now. You know, they haven't finished above us for a long, long time. They're kind of, for us, it's like we know we're better than, I think we feel we've been better than them for as long as we can remember, pretty much.
They're so deluded, like, they live in the past.
The fact is that Arsenal have won fuck all for ages.
Hate their ground, hate the area.
I think the hatred of Arsenal we have goes deeper than just a superficial kind of derby day hatred that you get in a Merseyside derby or a Milan derby or something like that.
We hate Tottenham and we hate Tottenham. We hate Tottenham and we hate Tottenham. Do you know what? I need to go to that game. I'm actually thinking about it now. I need a ticket.
It is probably the biggest derby in the Premiership.
It's the biggest game of our season, regardless of what's happening.
It is really special. I played big games in Holland, but this is something different.
Now, I know the Scouser derby, Everton and Liverpool's huge. I know even Man United and Liverpool's big. But Arsenal and Tottenham, there's nothing like it.
The expectations, you know, from the fans, the pride of North London, us as players know what it means to the supporters, and it's a big game and one we always look forward to.
There's so much on the line.
And I'm already having nightmares about it. I'm already stressed out.
No football fan enjoys a big derby game until the final whistle's gone, and only then if you haven't lost.
It will be more relief than anything else. I mean, that's the thing about an Arsenal game, that an Arsenal game that you've won, it's more the kind of feeling.
It's just agony.
Thank fuck that's finished.
When have you ever sat there
and enjoyed it? Never.
I mean, it's nice. It's a great experience, particularly if you get a good result. But take your tin hat.
I'd be quite happy to pay 60 quid for Spurs to go 1-0 up after 5 minutes and everybody say, okay, that's it.
But you know, they're not from North London, they're from South London, so it's, in a sense, it's in some ways it's just another London derby.
This time I'm in North London for a match which, when first played over 100 years ago, wouldn't really have been considered a derby. When this fixture was first played, it took place between Tottenham Hotspur and a team then known as Woolwich Arsenal, based on the other side of the River Thames, here in South East London.
We started as Woolwich Arsenal in glamorous South London, and for various reasons decided to move north.
Arsenal decided to make the move in 1913 to Highbury because it was quite hard for fans to get via train to where they play, and their attendances were suffering a great deal.
Although I knew about Arsenal's history over the other side of the river, I've always assumed that since their move north was over 100 years ago, no one cared or perhaps even remembered anymore. But this is a derby, and I should have known that when it comes to these matches, nothing is ever forgotten.
He moved them across North London to try and make more money.
They did so in 1913 on a 20-year lease, and immediately that caused friction between the two clubs.
Grasping at straws, aren't they, of ways to kind of beat Arsenal with, you know, kind of anything. They'll cling to anything, something that happened 80 years ago.
We just always still call them the Woolwich Wanderers.
And now if you go there where they actually originated, there's just statues of big cannons and stuff there, and it's just, they really need to go back there. I just feel they're a bit like
Refugees, you're not meant to be here. I'm like, so the Americans, they're not meant to be there. They came, now the United States is all theirs.
gypsies, if that's the right word to use. They like to travel around a lot. They don't really stay in one place, because then they moved to Highbury. About 50 years later, they moved up the road to the actual Arsenal, so they moved to the Emirates.
Didn't they put a bid in for the Olympic Stadium, which is in East London?
Yeah,
and you know, they could easily be in East London now if everything had gone their way. So it goes to show, I think they should kind of come off their high horse.
But we decided to stay in Tottenham, and it's our roots. We're the only North London side.
Does it have an effect on the way it's viewed now? Maybe for the older generation, yes, because it's still sort of maybe resonates in their mind. They might remember it to some extent. As an Arsenal fan from the new generation, especially from the early 90s, I don't think it makes any difference.
They don't belong over here, they belong over there.
Whilst I think it's fair to say there's always been a decent level of animosity between both sets of fans, there is a particularly notorious incident that occurred back in 2001 that really served to increase the tensions.
The changing over between two clubs is, I'm not saying it's unique, but it's very seldom, you know.
Honestly, I think it's disrespectful.
I hate that guy.
I find it very difficult to talk about Sol Campbell.
After allowing his contract to expire, club icon and Tottenham captain Sol Campbell moved down the Seven Sisters Road and joined Arsenal on a free transfer.
You know, he'd been expected to go abroad by a lot of people. There's a lot of talk about Inter Milan and Barcelona.
First of all, he said he wasn't going to go anywhere, even though his contract was running down. He said he was going to stay. Then he said if he went anywhere, he'd probably go to Barcelona or something because he wanted to play abroad.
When it happened on the day, I remember it was mad because there was a press conference.
The sports news came on 5 Live.
And everyone knew Sol Campbell was out of contract and they suspected that he was going abroad.
And they said, we've had an extraordinary turn of events at Arsene Wenger's Arsenal press conference. He's come on grinning.
Everyone was just sitting down thinking, who is it, who is it? And no one had a clue who it was.
He said, I want to introduce you to someone.
Literally, he comes out. I said, oh my God, do you understand what you're doing?
It wasn't just what he did, which in itself would have been the greatest act of treachery ever. It was the way he did it. He lied and lied and lied and allowed them to parade him like that.
He just did it on a sneaky thing. He didn't hint at it any part of the season. He's literally just unveiled.
That was one of the sort of jaw-dropping moments of English football transfer history.
You've cemented your place in the history of football, not just in football.
We absolutely needed a kind of totally staunch kind of leader in the middle of defence, and we found Sol Campbell from our biggest rivals. It was absolutely extraordinary in every sense.
For that person of that significance to cross over on a free transfer, bear in mind that you're a Spurs boy, you don't even give any money back to the club. I don't think he understood. This is where I begin to wonder, sometimes are you a football fan or is it just your job?
We gave him everything in terms of adulation and support. We brought him through. You know, he captained Tottenham Hotspur. He couldn't have been more loved.
Sol Campbell just holding up the Worthington Cup in that Hewlett-Packard strip. And I used to look at that poster and it used to bring me joy all the time because I was like, that's the only piece of silverware I've seen.
People like Steven Gerrard are never going to sign for United. People like Gary Neville would have never gone to Liverpool.
It was just an act of disgusting treachery by a morally bankrupt person.
This feeling in my stomach, honestly, I could go as far as to say I don't think I've hated anyone, and even to this day I don't think I've forgiven him.
In November of that year, Arsenal came to play Spurs.
What on earth could he possibly expected after that?
They had great difficulty even getting the Arsenal bus into the ground. They were pelted with rocks and stones and bottles.
Anything barring physical harm I think is perfectly acceptable, and that's what he got.
And the Spurs fans had thousands of balloons with the word Judas.
To win leagues, cups, as an Arsenal man, that must have killed Spurs fans, but I'm so happy it did because I can't stand them anyway.
Whilst the Sol Campbell saga was an obvious point of conflict, my understanding is that this derby has become even more heated over the past decade. I want to know if this is true, and if so, why?
I definitely feel like it has got more touchy on their part. It never changed for us because when I was growing up in the 90s, we was always far behind them.
I think what's happened since 06, if I'm being honest with you, this is honest, this is going to upset people. Arsenal got worse.
What has started to change is that Tottenham have, got closer and closer to the top 4. So as Harry says, like the games are starting to take on more relevance than ever.
It's something that has made it very tense, but more on their part. Like I said, we were always bantering them with them. When we was low, when we were high, we were always doing it. Now they're really going at us.
The love that these two clubs have for their teams and the passion that they show is really something special. And for some, it goes beyond mere support.
That's why people say, my dad always said to me, football is definitely a surrogate religion. Because it's the same, it equates, if you're quite a religious person and you go to church, you can feel the energy amongst everybody when they're in their religious practices.
Some people go as far as to just, pray to the football gods about certain things. Like they sit down and the night before and they're like, I pray Tottenham win, I pray Arsenal win.
And the one game I went to, I'm telling you, like you feel it. It's just it's not like your average game. There is something in the air and sometimes you can sort of sense what's gonna happen.
And so it is match day. You already know it is because the burger vans are out, the police are patrolling, and most importantly, the fans have taken over the streets of North London. I've spoken to the media, I've spoken to the players, and they've given me their perspective on the derby, but like any intra-city fixture, it's all about the match day experience. So I've come to Tottenham High Road, and I want to speak to the people and see what makes this London's finest.
The biggest games of the season.
There's only one team in North London, mate.
There's never going to be love between the two clubs, is there?
They're in the wrong area. They should go back to Woolwich where they were. Well, all my friends are Arsenal fans, so that means a lot.
Bragging rights for the next few months is the next game.
It's part of my makeup, my DNA.
Derby's much better because you get the big atmosphere.
If we win, it'll make the whole season.
It's more intense.
You don't really care about anything else about finishing top four because you just want to win this game.
You're an Arsenal fan, you got your kit. Kid, do you want to explain to me why you don't show your kit around here?
Well, actually, I had it open, but I was just down the road and this fella was going to try it on me, but I didn't want to get in a fight.
Raw, it's going to be heartfelt. If we beat Arsenal here today, it's going to be off the scale.
Well, it's finally happened. Arsenal have turned up, and it's everything we were told. The police have segregated everyone, there's things flying over, everyone's abusing everyone. You can't hear yourself think. See it for yourself. The hatred is so palpable. All these cops, all these horses aren't even enough to divide these fans. I don't think I'd want to be an Arsenal fan right now. It is that imposing. Check this out. A line of Spurs that do not want them in North London. This is what derbies are all about. Just look at the faces. I mean, I don't know if you saw that, but if it wasn't obvious, there was no option to speak to Arsenal. They were basically escorted by a small military unit. Our only option now is to head in and see if the atmosphere amongst 30,000 replicates just those few thousand. I'm pretty sure it will. And so it ends 1-0 to the Arsenal. How it ended that way, I don't quite know. I guess it was a case of Spurs not taking their chances and Arsenal, and in particular Rosicky, taking his. But this is a derby and it's not about on the pitch, it's always about off it. And White Hart Lane with those fans was perfect. I mean, for what it lacked in pyrotechnics and choreography and flares that we saw in Rome, it made up for with the voices in the terraces. As for the Arsenal fans, well, I never thought I'd say this, but they were as good as an away section as I've ever seen. They sat in the opposite section to me, but every time you looked over, you could see hands in the air, just a sea of skin in full support of their boys. The noise they made was incredible, and perhaps that's why they got over the line. That's it from us here in North London. Next up, it's Dortmund, it's Schalke, it's the Revere Derby. If you want to catch that one or any of our derbies across Europe, make sure you subscribe to Copper 90, where the game around the world never stops.